Hello, friends. If you are thinking to start a business but you don't know from where to start, then you are in the right video. Here we are going to discuss about the three popular business structure: sole proprietorship, limited liability partnership, and the private limited company. So, why choosing a right business structure is crucial? It's a crucial for your success and growth of business. The aim of this video is to help you understand the differences and the advantages and disadvantages of all three business models, and based on that you can take a good decision. So what is a sole proprietorship? It's nothing but a business owned and managed by the single individual person. You do not need any sort of registration to start this business. What you just need is a company name, and on top of that company name you need a current account. You may require a specific licenses in case if you are running a food or drug business, then you would need FSSAI registration. If you have establishment, then you would need a shop license. If you are starting with a factory, then you would need a factory license. In case of your income is going beyond 20 lakhs, then you would read GST registration, and I would suggest to go with the Udyam or MSME registration, which will give your company a name into Indian business market. In terms of the sole proprietorship, what are the advantages are there? So it's easy and inexpensive to start. You need a minimum paperwork, and the setup cost and the maintenance cost is very low. The regulatory requirement are also very few. The compliance requirement are also very less. In terms of year end compliance, you just need to fill your income tax return based on your income. That's all. And the bank related income and tax detail you will get from the 26AS form. Since it is run and managed by a single person, you have the complete control over a decision making, and you also have the direct access to all the profit. So what could be the disadvantages of running a sole proprietorship? So there are two main disadvantages. The very first is it's a difficult to raise capital. Since it is run by a single person, getting a loan for that particular business can be difficult, and you do not have the option of shares as well. In terms of negligence and misconduct, the liability is unlimited. In that case, the owner is personally responsible for all the business debts. If the owner is retiring, or if there is a problem with running the business, then the business may cease. Also, in terms of growth potential, it is having a limited growth potential since just a single person is running it. Let's have a look into the limited liability partnership. So when there are two or more than two partners decide to go with a business, they can go with the LLP, wherein the liability is limited to each partner. Since the legal entity is separate from its partner, the partner do not have to pay for a mistake or a misconduct or negligence done by another partner. That is the main important thing. So let's have a look into the advantages. So the very first point we have already talked about, that the personal assets are not at risk for the business debt in case of negligence and misconduct by other partner. In terms of the flexibility in management, partners can decide to manage the overall business, or they can go for managers. Raising a capital is easier compared to sole proprietorship. You have the loan financing option, that's easier to go for. In case of partner is changing, there is also a possibility of perpetual succession. You can choose a new partner and continue your firm. So what could be the disadvantages of limited liability partnership? Obviously it's a bit more complex and expensive to set up and run than the sole proprietorship. The compliance related requirement and annual filings are more. In this case, you need to fill the form 8 and form 11, and obviously the tax return has to be filled according to the income. It's also having a bit of difficulty in raising the money through the equity program, and if there is a conflict between the partners or disagreement, it can potentially harm the business. So these are the disadvantages. If we talk about the private limited company, if there are two or more than two members but less than 200 members, they can go for a private limited company. It's a separate legal entity and the shareholders have the limited liability. It requires at least two directors and stakeholders to start this company. So what are the advantages? So the shareholders have the limited liability, and their personal assets are protected. Since this is a private limited company, it's easier to raise fund through the equity option. In case of changing the ownership, it's easy to run the company, so there is a succession option available. And since this is a company, there is a more trust from the investors and the customer. It's going to have a good image in front of stakeholders, and it's going to be easy to raise fund, and the credibility will be more. What can be the disadvantages of private limited company? So obviously it's going to complex and expensive to set up and maintain. In terms of compliance and disclosure requirement, you need to go with the e forms of the ROC. Annual return has to be done, annual financing statement has to be declared, and intimation of the auditor's appointment has to happen. Since we have seen all these three business model, let's see the or let's do the comparison between them. So in terms of formation, its sole proprietorship is easy to go with, but the private limited company is the complex form. In terms of liability, sole proprietorship is going to have the unlimited liability, but LLP and the private limited company are going to have the limited liability. In terms of management, obviously the LP in LLP, partners are going to decide, or manager is going to decide about the business. In terms of private limited company, it's a director who are going to run the company. In terms of continuity option, obviously the LLP and the private limited company are going to have the more visibility. Compliance related requirement, sole proprietorship is going to have the less compliance related requirement. At the same time, private limited company is going to have the highest number of compliance requirement. Capital raising is difficult in terms of sole proprietorship, but it's easiest in private limited company. What are the considerations we need to make while deciding which business to go for? So obviously the business goals are an important factor. Define your vision and the objective, what you want to achieve from that particular business. It's an important consideration. In terms of risk tolerance, obviously a single person will be having a less risk tolerance than the overall company. The capital need is going to be more in terms of big organization, big companies, but the long term vision is more in private limited company. So let's discuss around what company is best on what situation. So if you are just thinking to start a small business by your own and you don't have any partner, my suggestion would be to go with the sole proprietorship. You have less complexity in terms of the compliance thing. If you are having partners from a different company, from a different background, then it's good to go with the LLP, because you are limiting your liability over there, and at the same time you are not alone to run the business. In terms of the private limited company, obviously the visibility is high, the vision is longer, and there is a possibility of raising fund very easily. So you can go with that company if you have a large vision in terms of your business. So that's all for today's content. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon if you like the content, and we'll be coming up with the new content in the next video. Thank you for your time.